Hey guys, Jerry Norton here, and really excited about what I want to talk to you about this topic this week. Something that's come up quite a bit is around the idea of supervision, or the topic of supervision. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because, first of all, there is no right way or wrong way to supervise a project. There's actually several different ways that we can supervise a project. And I want to talk about this because it's often asked of me, okay, well, how do you manage, a rehab project or a build project? How do I manage that project? Great question. And so I want to cover that topic in today's In the Field training. First of all, these are the things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the different types of supervision, the responsibilities, and the payment structure, and also the pros and cons of each. And I'm going to share with you from my perspective. I've tried lots of different ways, and I'm going to share with you what I've come to realize and experienced as what these are and the different ways that you can do them. But again, there really is no right or wrong way. There are some benefits and there's some downsides to each of the different ways that we can manage a project. So I'll share with you my perspective. I'll share with you what my beliefs are with the pros and cons. But ultimately, you need to decide what resonates with you, what fits into your business model based on what your goals are. I will say this, one of the most important things that you can focus on, if you think back to my previous training I did, was what are high value activities? Remember this, high value activities. What is a good use of your time, or the best use of your time? And what are lower value activities? Things that are not productive necessarily, or the most productive. Okay, so with that in mind, let's jump into this training. I'm going to use the whiteboard here. I'm sitting at my executive office, and I'm going to put some notes up on here, and we're going to go through, and I'm going to share with you my perspective on this topic. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at a typical rehab or new construction project. Every project is going to have a scope of work. A scope of work is exactly what you're going to do to the project, right? We call that scope of work. Your budget, what it's going to cost you to do that scope of work. You've got your timeline and your schedule. How long is it going to take you from A to Z to do that work? You've got permits and inspections. That's another big responsibility that comes with building, especially building and a lot of rehabs too. You've got to pull permits, and then you've got to have inspections on a lot of the work that we're going to do. And then you have this big old thing of draws and payments to your contractors, your subcontractors, or however you work it out. So every deal has these different responsibilities. Okay, so think about that. There's a scope, there's a budget, timeline and scheduling, permits and inspections, and draws and payment. I'm talking just the rehab part of the building phase of a real estate project, okay? So with that in mind, what I want to do is I want to kind of talk about now, our supervision is going to take on some or all of these roles. And how much of that are you going to take on? You could take it all on, we're going to talk about that method, or you can outsource it all 100%, and then there's quasi kind of in between. So let's talk about now those different ways that you can manage your rehab given these different things that need to be done, okay? Okay, so here are the 4 different methods that you can manage a project, right? So first of all, you can get a GC or a builder, a general contractor or a builder. Second method is a supervisor or a project manager, or you can manage it yourself with admin, with an administrative assistant, or you can manage it entirely yourself, okay? So we start with the most outsourced to the least outsourced here, and there are basically these 4 different methods. Now, I'm going to share with you my definition of these. Obviously, some people do a mixture, or some of this or some of that. Everybody's going to kind of create their own method, but let me share with you my interpretation or definition of each of these and how they're defined. And let's also talk about responsibilities, pros and cons, when it makes sense to use one over the other, and help you decide for you in your business and your goals and what you're doing, which is the ideal, which is the best way to do it, okay? And again, I think this is going to be really insightful because you're going to start to see, hopefully, where these fit in and where they don't fit in, and hopefully you look at this and say, man, I really shouldn't be doing that in this situation, or you know what, it makes a whole lot of sense to do it in that situation. Okay, so let's talk about it now. Okay, so first let's talk about the GC/builder. I put both of those in the same category. When you're rehabbing, it's going to be a general contractor. When you're building, it's going to be a builder as that role. Now, this person is 100% outsourced. That's the true definition. It means you hire the GC, and he is responsible for the timeline, the scheduling contractors and stubs, not only scheduling, but finding, getting bids, scheduling, permits, inspections, all of it. Payment, paying contractors, paying subs. Their job is to be 100% responsible for the job. You hire a GC, he manages the entire project from start to finish, all the ins and outs, all the day-to-day decisions. Okay, now think about this, you're giving a lot of authority, a lot of power to that builder or GC. As such, your cost for them is typically a set fee or a cost plus. Now in new construction and really in building, generally speaking, you'll hear the phrase cost plus. Now what that means is their fee to do your project is whatever the cost is for the subs and materials, contract and labor, right? Labor and materials. It's cost plus either a 10 or 15% is typically the number on their fee for managing that project. So if I'm doing a $50,000 rehab and I've got a cost plus 10, it would be the cost plus $5,000 for that GC to manage that. Now that's pretty low for a rehab. It's probably going to be higher than that, but that gives you an idea of how that works. On my new construction, it's usually cost plus 10, cost plus 15. So it might cost $50,000 on a $500,000 build project, right? Cost plus, whatever that total cost of labor and materials is plus their fee. Now the reason why they do that is because if you change your mind and add things and add things and add things, they don't care because they're going to get paid for every one of those changes. Now you could have a set fee. So on some of my build projects, I pay the builder a $25,000 fee to build the whole house. Here's my plans, here's what I'm doing. You build it, you manage it, you get the subs, you do all of it, and I'll pay you $25,000 or $50,000 or whatever it may be. Okay, so that's how we manage the cost. So what are some of the pros? Well, the pros are that it's the least amount of management that you have to do. The least amount of management that you have to do. The most amount of management that's outsourced is the GC builder model. Okay, that's a huge pro. It's awesome because now it's scalable. You can do multiple projects. Now the cons are, and I'll come back to when it's ideal, the cons are because you're giving up that control, you're putting all of the pressure, all of the ownership on keeping to the budget, keeping to the timeline, doing quality work, picking subs that are good and reasonable and fair priced. You're putting that all on your GC. The tendency that I found is that your GC builder, the costs tend to go up and up and up because they're not motivated to get lots of bids and to save money on cost. Why would they be, right? Why would they be motivated to do that? They're not really that concerned if things go over budget because it doesn't affect their bottom line as much as it affects your bottom line. Now I'm generalizing with some of the downsides, some of the pitfalls that you can run into. I'm not saying all builders are that way or all, builders don't care or general contractors don't care about the budget. They do. I'm just saying that's one of the downsides is that budgets can run over. The other downside is that you're not building those relationships. The contractors, the subs, that's the builders or the GC's contacts. So you don't have those people now. They're their people. Now that's a downside because you don't have your own subs. If you decide to do your own projects or go a different route, you don't have that relationship. You also don't learn what the real cost of things are because the builder or the GC is gathering all that, they're doing all of that. Typically, the general or the builder will give you a lump sum price for the whole project. You say, great, go with it, and you don't really know what each line item costs. To me, that's a real negative because when you're bidding projects or you're doing your repair estimates on houses that you're running your formula, your analysis, you want to know what things cost. You want to know what plumbing is and painting and HVAC and all of the different aspects of the rehab. You want to know what those items cost per line item. You know, you can ask me, what does it cost for tile? I can rattle these numbers off in my markets because I've taken the time to learn what those numbers are. When is it ideal to get a GC or a builder? I found that in my out-of-state markets, my non-backyard markets, a GC or a builder, 100% outsource, is the best structure. Now I know I'm paying more, because I am, and I hire somebody good, so I pay top dollar, but now since I'm not there, and I don't have eyes on it, my eyes on it, then I tend to want to get someone that can be 100% responsible, and I can manage them long distance better that way. Okay, so the next method of managing your project is with a supervisor or a project manager, okay? So this is not the same as a GC or a builder. This is someone that you hire to manage the process, okay? So what are they responsible for? They're responsible for the timeline and the scheduling. That's their biggest thing, the timeline and the scheduling. Now those are two big parts of rehabbing a house, is the timeline and the scheduling, and scheduling, maybe scheduling inspections. But what they're not gonna do is they're not gonna get bids, typically, and they're not gonna find, hire, or pay subcontractors. That's your job. So you provide the contractors, and the supervisor project manager manages them and makes sure they show up, tells them when they need to come in, schedules and all of that, calls in inspections. So they're going to do all of that legwork. They should be at the project every day, making sure things are getting done, making sure things are getting ordered, scheduling the next people. So you can see it's a step down because now you still own budgeting, you still own creating the scope, right? Scope, budgeting, and finding, hiring, and firing, and paying contractors. That's still a big part of it, but much less than it is the timeline and scheduling. Now, how do you pay these guys? Well, that's a tricky one. You could pay them a set fee per project. You could pay them a weekly salary or an hourly wage. I tend to stay away from that. I don't think hourly or salary is a good idea. I tend to focus most of my help in some type of production or commission base, because now they're motivated to do a good job. Somehow I want to tie that to it. So it could be a set fee with a bonus if they get done early or on budget or under budget, and a penalty if they go over budget or over schedule or over the timeline. So there's some ways to kind of tie in some ownership there. Think about it that way. Think about some type of a set fee for the whole project based on your scope of work, and then a bonus penalty structure. I found that works really well with a supervisor. But you do not want to just turn your supervisor loose and not manage them very well. They will milk out a project, or the tendency, I'm talking the downside now, the cons. There's no, if they're getting paid hourly or on a weekly salary, one of our fast trackers put their supervisor on a $1,000 a week salary to manage a couple different projects. Well, that sounds great in theory, but what motivation do they have to come in on budget and to get it done quickly? The longer it takes, the more they make, the quicker it takes, the less they make. It's not a good structure. Think about that, right? So some of the pros are you're still alleviating a lot of the management, the timeline scheduling, and inspections and things. You're alleviating half or maybe more than you would on your own, okay? So you're still outsourcing some of the work to do the project, not all of it. This can tend to be a good structure in certain situations. For example, let's say that you've got multiple projects in one location or one general area, one geographical area. You might get a supervisor project manager that can kind of go between a couple different projects, and your overall cost is fairly minimal for the amount of work that they're doing. So supervisor can work, and a project manager is another method, alleviates some of the work, not all of the work, and there are some pros and cons to that as well. You're going to save some money than you would with a GC or a builder, but you're going to have to do now some of the work, finding, hiring, firing, and paying subs. But that can also be a pro because now they're your guys, they're your subs. My goal is to be 3 deep on every contractor. I want to have 3 HVAC contractors, 3 plumbers, 3 electricians, 3 different demo guys, 3 different drywall guys, 3 different painters, 3 deep. So that way, if I'm having an issue with one of my subs or they can't show up when I need them to, I got another one to call. And they're competent, they're good, they're priced right. So I'm not 3 deep all the time in every area, but I usually find myself in trouble when I'm not 2 to 3 deep with every sub. Because sure enough, my tile guy is going to be tied up on a big job, or he's going to flake out at some point or whatever, and I got no one to call and I'm scrambling. Okay, so, and it keeps my guys honest. It keeps all my subs honest because they know that there are other subs bidding for my work again on this project, just like the last project. So it keeps them hungry, keeps them working for my business and wanting to do a good job. Okay, so that's a supervisor, project manager. So our third method is self-manage with admin, with an administrative assistant. Now, what is an administrative assistant? They are not a project manager. They're not necessarily even construction-minded, construction background. They're not a licensed builder. They could be not anything to do with a contracting background, but they're really good at admin. They're really organized, and so they are your go-to. So you're doing the scheduling, deciding, you're making the decisions, and your admin is carrying them out. Okay, so for example, you give your admin a list of things. I need you to go down to the building department, pull a permit for this. I need you to schedule the electrician for next Thursday. I need you to call the cabinet contractor and order the cabinets. I need you to get 3 more bids on electrical. I need you to find me another plumber because my other plumber can't be there when we need him there. It's just running around and doing your list of 100 things a day for you and helping you. All the ownership is still on you for all of it. The budget, the timeline, or the scope, the budget, the timeline, scheduling, all of it comes back to you. You are the point of contact, but you've got a helper now that's going to alleviate some of the the menial stuff. They're going to be emailing, following up, but they're not quite efficient to take it on and own it and do it without you making the decisions. Okay, so it's the third tier down. It's still alleviating a lot of work because now they're doing a lot of the day-to-day. Maybe it's meet a contractor and pay him. That's a really big one that admin does. I have some subs, some contractors that they need paid as soon as they're done. Oh my gosh, I don't want to drop everything and meet them and give them a check. I don't want to be waiting in my office for someone to show up so I can give them a check. I hate that. That drives me crazy. But I can have my admin run and meet them and give them a check because that's not a good use of my time. Remember, high value activities, low value activities. So an admin person, what I found, is a really good admin, somebody on top of their organizational game that can make good lists, that can carry out, that can follow up, that can return and report. All of that is about a 40 to 50,000, maybe 35, but I found around 40 to 50,000 a year. You can get a rock star admin that can start to carry out a lot of your work. Okay, and you're going to save quite a bit because a supervisor. Let me put the fees back in context. You might pay $150,000 to a builder. Let's say this. Let's say I've got 3 projects that I do over a year. Those 3 projects might cost me $100,000, $125,000, $150,000 for a GC or a builder. Now, depending on size and all of that, but I'll just put it in context. Let's say $150,000. A supervisor might cost you $80,000. An admin might cost you $45,000. See the difference? Now, at some point, you should be thinking, okay, well, if I do enough projects and I can leverage, I can start to make more money. I can start to save a lot of money on my supervision. Or I can scale. I can start doing less and less. It's worth paying out more because now I can do 20 projects instead of 10 or whatever it may be. So you got to think about scale. You got to think about you can only do so much before you reach your bandwidth. That's it. You reach your bandwidth. Everybody's bandwidth is different. Some people can do 2 deals a year and that's all the bandwidth they have. Other people can do 100 deals a year, same time, because they manage and they lead and they direct and they have better bandwidth. Okay, your job as a leader is to expand your bandwidth without working more, right? And so you've got to start thinking about supervision in that context. Now, another way to look at this is how I look at it in one of my markets. So let's take my Phoenix market. In Phoenix, at least right now as of this recording, I do all high-end stuff here, all over $1 million. Some of it several $1 million. Now my goal here isn't to do 50 deals, it's to do 5. Because every single deal is a 6-figure deal, some of them high 6-figure deals. So if I were to hire, for example, if I were to hire a builder GC for one of my multi-million-dollar spec homes, new construction, a $4.5 million home, it would cost me $150,000 to $200,000 to hire a builder. It would cost me $80,000 to $100,000 to hire a supervisor, one project to supervise it. It cost me $50,000 to have an admin. I manage it with an admin, but now I can do 3 projects with my bandwidth with one annual fee of $50,000, three high 6-figure projects. I don't need a lot of projects if I'm making 6 figures, high 6 figures on a project, right? I don't need to do a lot. Now, if I was doing a different model where I was like, hey, I want to make $20,000 a house and I want to do 50 houses, entirely different model. Maybe now you can have a project manager or a supervisor that's payroll with a bonus incentive, and they can run around to 10 different projects at a time every day, and they're easy to manage because they're basic rehabs, because they're smaller houses, kitchens, bath, carpet, paint. My high-end homes are big projects. They are 18-month, they are big scopes. My rehabs are completely redesigning, adding additions, like they're big projects. They're not things that are easy to manage or easy to outsource. I almost need to make decisions on a daily basis, but I don't want to be doing all of the $10 an hour things. I want to be making high-level decisions about what we're doing every day on that project, because it takes a turn. Every day it takes a different turn because it's got a life of its own, because it's a huge remodel. It's a $300,000 remodel on a 3,000 square foot house. That's one of my projects right now, right? So big decisions. I don't want to outsource that to a builder or a GC, but I can have an admin who's going to do a lot of the day-to-day follow-up and scheduling things. Okay, does that make sense? Does that help you understand? I'm not saying, this is what I'm not saying, it's never good to use a GC. You should never use a project manager, or you should never self-manage. There are different situations that make sense for those. If you've got a question about that, be sure to ask me, and I'll tell you, given your goals and the types of deals you're doing, what I think is ideal for that situation. It's about the type of project and the number of deals you're doing, where you need to start to think about the different ways, okay, and your goals. You may say, I've done this. I just did a deal in Houston, Texas. I never saw the project once. I never physically went there one time. Now, I paid for a GC and I paid out the nose, paid really high fees to get it 100% outsourced, because I didn't want to have to get involved in the supervision and in the day-to-day decision making. Okay? Different story in my backyard, different story with certain projects. Okay, so I hope that's very helpful. Some markets are more friendly to GC and builders. For example, in southern Utah, I can get a builder to build me $1 million home for $25,000. A builder. In Phoenix, Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, same thing, same house, same cost, $150,000. Because there's just no, there's a high demand for builders in Phoenix. There's an oversupply of builders in southern Utah. Price comes down, right? It's all price, it's all supply and demand. Okay, so does that make sense? So markets will also dictate what you do. Okay, we got one more to cover. It's really self-manage all on your own. Self-manage all by yourself. This one I tend to shy away from. There are a couple situations where this might make sense, but again, what I mean by self-manage 100% is you are everything. You are the GC, builder, supervisor, project manager, admin, you are all of it. So you make all the decisions, you pay the subs, you find them, hire them, fire them, schedule, timeline, all of it. Now, the problem with this is you're really shrinking your bandwidth. Most people I know that self-manage 100% only can do a couple deals a year. They can only do a couple deals a year. Now, if you're making $500,000 per deal, hey, that might be fine. You self-manage, you got no admin, no overhead, no nothing, and you make all of the decisions. That model may work for you. What I found is most rehabbers, most fix and flippers, they get into this business and they self-manage 100%, and then next thing they know, they're doing all of these low-level activities all the time, and they're not able to grow, they're not able to do more deals, and what's even worse is they do low-end deals. They do deals that make 20 grand. If it takes you a whole year working 40 to 50 hours a week and you do 3 deals and you make $20,000 a deal, that's $60,000 a year. That's not the goal. That's not what we're after here. Oh my gosh, you're leaving so much on the table. You're wasting your potential if you're doing that. Okay? I don't want to see you self-managing unless there's one situation where it might make sense. You're new, you only have one deal, you got nothing else right now, and you don't want to pay for an admin, you don't want to pay the fees for a project manager or a GC builder. But again, you're making your learning curve for growth, you're limiting it, because every day you're doing low-level activities, low-value activities, you're not finding your next deal because you're down here doing $10 an hour work instead of finding your next deal. So it's going to take you longer. It's going to be harder to start getting more deals because you're finding your acquisitions is going to suffer greatly because you're down here in the trenches in the middle of a rehab project. On the flip side, it does give you really good experience. Going through a rehab, self-managing, gets your feet wet, it gets you in there, you start to learn, you learn from mistakes, and some of that knowledge and experience will help you later. Here's my advice to you. If you are new and you self-manage your first or second or third project, do not make that your model. Tell yourself, I'm going to do it, but only with the intent of learning what it is so that I can get somebody else to do it next time. Or if it's a low value activity, how do I get somebody else to do it? I've now ingrained my mind to think everything I do, I ask the question, is this something I should be doing right now? Is this something I should be doing at all? Who can I get to do this so I don't have to do it anymore? And that's what keeps you from going down into the trenches and keeping up here and being strategic in your business. Okay, I'm not perfect at it. I don't always do it. I refer back to a video I shared where I'm at Home Depot buying lumber for my subs on a Saturday. Bad idea, right? But think about it now. Think about it in the context of GC builder, supervisor, project manager, self-manage with admin, self-manage 100%. Which of those makes the most sense for the types of deals I'm doing, the number of deals I'm doing, the market I'm doing my deals, and my lifestyle? Do I want to be out at projects doing demo to save $500? I'll do the demo myself. Do I want to be painting the house so I can save some money because I can paint it cheaper than the painters? Do I want to be the one doing all of the decisions, or do I want to start to grow and get help in one of these different ways? Okay, so hope you found that helpful, and look forward to sharing more videos like this. Jerry Norton, we'll see you next time.